Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Firehouse Table Talk. I'm your host, Scott Jones, with Addiction Training Center. And we are once again speaking with our friends up at the Palm Beach Garden Fire and Rescue. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. This is our first show of the new year. We're a little late getting started, but we're hoping that everybody is looking forward to a more fruitful and a healthier and a happier year this year. We've all been through a lot of stuff. And of course, our first responders have always been at the front end of all of the issues that we've been dealing with COVID and with everything else. So we want to make sure that we give our respect and our thanks to our first responders in fire and rescue, first responders in the police departments, our first responders in the hospitals, the doctors and nurses, and of course, our great military. So next time you see one of them, let's make it a habit this year in 2022 that if you see somebody in uniform with a badge, we take a moment, we thank them for their service, and we appreciate all the things that they do. It's really easy to criticize when we're sitting on the outside. These guys do the hard work. They put themselves on the line, both physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually every day for us. So let's try to remember that before we start to cast aspersions or get upset about certain things. We're here. And, to start off, I want to bring in who's now certainly, I met this gentleman a while back, but has now become a friend and become somebody that I truly look up to. It is Chief Keith Brier from Palm Beach Garden Fire and Rescue. Keith, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, sir. How are you? It's good to see you. Happy New Year to you.
And a happy New Year to you. Let's both pray for a better year this year.
Yes, sir.
You guys have done exemplary work. I want to thank you for everything you guys have done in all departments around the country, but especially our friends right here at Palm Beach Gardens Fire and Rescue. You guys have been fantastic. You've stayed true to what you need to do in spite of the difficulties. Do you have any message for your people out there who have been working so hard?
We communicate regularly with them, but at the end of the day, we are given some unique challenges over the last 2 years with COVID. And, it's just kind of what we do in the fire service, right? We don't sit around and look around. We find a problem and we just have to be able to fix it and solve it. And, we talked about this in the very beginning of this, how they pulled together, right? We still have a job. We still have an obligation to the public. But there were some uncertainties in the beginning of this pandemic, right? They were afraid of, not only their own health, but bringing something home to their family. So there was a lot of angst in the beginning of this. But, we did what we do, what we're supposed to do and what we're expected to do. At the end of the day, we put our boots on and we go to work and we get the job done. And they have been absolutely amazing. On top of it all, we have all the regular business that we do and the increased growth that we've seen. 2021, we had almost 13,000 calls here in the city, which is, the most amount of calls for emergency service that we've had in the history of the department. So on top of everything else, on top of being busy in the training and everything they've done, they have stepped up to the plate and done an amazing job. I am very proud of all of them.
And as we are proud and of course, thankful for everything that you and your people do. But this creates a whole new issue. And this is what we're going to be talking about today with our guest. And is that busier situations and more things to deal with create more opportunities for stress, for anxiety, for depression, and for trauma. And these are things that cannot be ignored. So let's bring our guest in and have some discussion about that. What do you say, Chief?
Let's do it.
Tell us a little bit about Chad Lang. Who is this guy to you?
So, Chad came highly recommended to us. We were looking for another department chaplain. Our previously chaplain had retired and moved north, and we were really looking for somebody that would be a real good fit for our demographic. We have a lot of young families, and that's important. And the fire service, a lot of times it's pretty difficult to be accepted. We were very fortunate enough to have our chaplain, Chad Lang, come in. Started about probably 8-9 months ago is when we really started. He's full swing now. Chad has a very unique background. He was a firefighter paramedic himself. He was a registered nurse before he became a pastor. But he is a perfect fit for us because he speaks their language. They know that he knows what they've been through and what they're going through. So being able to make that connection, and me and you have talked about that. You got to find the right people for the right job. You give them some direction and let him go, and he's done that. He's been absolutely amazing. He's been very well accepted by the crews, but he's done an amazing job, and you'll be able to see. But he's very well versed, and he's really reached out to them and made these contacts with them, which is very important because we want somebody to feel comfortable enough when they need to feel that they need to reach out. They have to have somebody comfortable enough to do that, and he's really bridged that gap quite well.
Well, that is a great introduction, and I see no reason why we shouldn't just jump right in and bring Chad in to join us. This is Chad Lang, Chaplain from Palm Beach Garden Fire and Rescue. Chad, thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
That was a hell of an introduction you got there. Can you live up to all that?
Man, I want to introduce me when people introduce me sometimes. I want to be introduced to myself sometimes. I'm like, man, oh man. So I hope that in the next 30 minutes or so, we can help shed a little light on the topic of discussion today, but also I can help live up to that name. Otherwise, I might be looking for something else on Monday or something. I don't know.
No chance, by the way.
Yeah, good.
No chance. It sounds to me like that you found a home and they've adopted you quite well. But, tell me a little bit about why you, Chad, before we talk about the problems that you're facing, why do you do this kind of work and what kind of fulfillment do you get out of this?
That's a great question. So having a history in the fire and EMS service, understanding that role, I'll go back a little bit if I can. It helps explain when I was a young kid getting born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I kind of grew up in a family that had some challenges. In that, I would call 911 a lot because there was a lot of issues and problems in my home. And every single time I did, the fire department would show up. My uncle was a firefighter in Pittsburgh, and inevitably his department would show up to my house on calls on a regular basis. And I remember that I knew when I was a kid that I was safe when I could hear the siren. And I know that today there is no difference for a lot of individuals that are out there. They know that safety, they know that they're going to be okay. They know that things are about to get better when the department shows up. And so years later, I had the privilege of being a part of that very fire department and for 4.5 years. And that was just an incredible time for me in my life, knowing that job and the hours, the operations, and the things that you take home. And as I became a pastor, I wanted to continue to stay connected to fire departments no matter where I was at around the country. And so I've done just that. I've wanted to come alongside, support. I'm not trying to convert anybody to a faith. I do, however, want to make sure that the individuals in that service and in that community are as strong on their last day as they were on their first, both in a bunch of different areas, professionally, personally, emotionally, and spiritually. So that's kind of what I do.
That's, I'm with you every bit of the way, except for the whole Pittsburgh thing, because you're probably a Steelers fan. And
I am.
I'm an Eagles fan, so that makes a problem for us.
Yeah, it's all right. I'll forgive you, but it's fine.
Oh, forgiveness. That's what we're looking for. Okay. No, yeah. I love the story. And when people are that emotionally connected and have a history of connection and having a meaningful piece, even like the whole thing with the sirens, and that means safety. Chief, that's got to make him much more valuable than just somebody who just wanted to be a fireman. I mean, he was almost born into this.
Absolutely. And not only was he born into it, but he's lived it. And they understand that. So they understand right off the bat that he's one of us, right? He's not an outsider trying to work his way in. He's a brother. He's one of us. That makes it that much easier. And, again, I want to say this up front. He volunteers his time. This is a volunteer position in this department. The amount of time, effort, and energy that he puts into this has got to be a love for what he's doing. We're just fortunate enough that he's chose our department to put his time, and energy, and effort into, because this is a volunteer position. And he's 24/7. You're not talking about somebody that just shows up when it's convenient. He listens to the radio. He makes the calls. And if he has to come out at 2 a.m, he's there. That's hard to find.
That's fantastic. I've got to ask, and forgive me if I speak out of line, gentlemen, but I think a lot of times when we start talking, and as our conversation moves into trauma and different things, which we will in a moment, a lot of times when people talk about these things, they're talking about psychological damage. They're talking about even some physical manifestations and different things that can happen. But a lot of what gets overlooked a lot is the spiritual side of that. Chad, have you noticed that when we're dealing with these kind of things, not a lot of people have put the thought out there about how spiritually damaged or how much repair has to be done there?
Well, yeah. I mean, you just look at every aspect of it. When you deal with traumatic incidents, it affects every aspect of your life. You can't designate, well, this is only going to affect here. It really does. When you start seeing similar things over and over again, you start asking questions. If you do have a faith value, regardless of what it is, you do start asking questions. Man, God, are you real? And there are some questions in battles that happen in that context. And sitting down and having some of those questions are probably some of the most enlightening ones for me, and ones that often I don't have the most answers for. And so just sitting down and listening. But the reality is, yeah, it affects every aspect of your life, and spiritually, it does in a pretty significant way. But if you do have a faith component, you can better understand that what you do is more than just getting on a truck and showing up for a 24-hour shift. It is a calling that you have to be able to reach a community, and the community that you're specifically placed in. And so that's a little bit more personal.
Absolutely. We've used words, and we use them all the time when we're dealing with things like everything from PTSD to minor traumas to different things. Anxiety, which is kind of a psychological thing going on, and depression. Then we use words like hopeless and people feeling hopeless and things like that. And without even knowing it, what we're talking about are spiritual things. When you're feeling hopeless, when you're feeling like lost and alone, those are very spiritual moments. So this is definitely something that needs to be addressed. And I'm glad somebody's out there paying attention to that.
Well, it's an honor to be with the department for sure. And I don't know how to do this role from a wellness component without that aspect. Yeah. And it wasn't an aspect of my life that I've had my entire life. I did not grow up in that. And so there is that side of the coin too. And I recognize them within the department. There's a lot of individuals that don't hold a faith component, and that's okay. My goal is not to get you somewhere that you don't want to be. My goal is to support you in the areas that you need supported, whether you know it or not. And so having conversations that are intentional, as we get into this, we'll talk. But the second and the third and the fourth questions are way more important than the first ones that are usually asked. And the first answers that are often given are usually just brushed off. Like, yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm good.
Yeah.
Are you really? Are you really? And so let's sit and have a conversation. And that happens best within the confines of the firehouse, around the table, and within the community that the firehouse produces within its own department. And so I know we're going to talk a little bit about peer-to-peer, but that's a part of that as well. It's the first line of defense to recognize some of these things that we're talking about.
Now, Chief, these stressors that we've mentioned kind of like on and off a little bit to get started, let's jump right in. The stressors don't go away on their own. When I use the word stressors, I'm using that as a general term to talk about minor incidences, major incidences, cumulative problems, all the things that firefighters face on a daily, and rescue workers face on a daily basis. They're not going away on their own. We're building teams like peer support teams. Where are we, and how far do we have to go, and how much of a crisis are we in right now?
So I think we are a lot better than we were 5 years ago, and we're a lot better than we were 10 years ago. But we have light years to go as far as making sure we still have that. When they show up, they're the people who handle the problems, and they don't like to tell other people that they have problems or they have issues. And what we've seen and we've talked about is the longer they hold on to that stress, or the longer they hold on to that, they're going to look to self-medicate. right? So they're going to turn possibly to drugs, to alcohol, to other things. So identifying that early on and getting them into the system is extremely important. And although awareness is there, so the awareness is way better than it used to be. I don't know that the awareness has really caught up with the fact that everybody goes, okay, now I'm aware of it, but am I going to bring it up now? Yes, I know it's an issue and a problem, but I don't know if I'm going to bring up my issue or problem right now. So we have a long way to go to work with our personnel to understand. And you know, the chaplain comes in, we just had a recruit academy. He spends time with them in the recruit academy. In the first couple of weeks that they're here, we have behavioral health training that's mandated by the state. But we tell them early on in the career, you are going to see bad things. You're going to see things that are horrendous that people don't see, much less on a daily basis. And you talk about cumulative, and you have to be aware of that. So we can try to push them to move forward. And I still think there's a little bit of hesitation for people to reach out. But when you have somebody like the chaplain who is proactive, so, you know, for instance, and I know he's not going to want me to tell you this, but he heard a call that he thought was going to be probably pretty bad. He heard it on the radio, listened to it a little bit, and rather than calling anybody, just went out to the station, right? Nobody called him out there, went out to the station, just nothing more to sit with the crew and just see how you guys doing, what do you need? To the point where, you know, they were eating dinner. He sat down with them, spent a little time with them, and then said, listen, you guys go sit down, chill out. I know it was a bad call. I'll get the dishes. Did the dishes, clean that place up. But more importantly, he was there. Nobody had to call him. He was just making himself available. So the more that we can make ourselves available to them, the more likely they are, because they have more increased opportunity to bring it up rather than just sit in the station or in their dorm. You know, we talked about this. Our dorms now are not big open dorms, right? They're little tiny cubicles. And if somebody wants to go hide and I'm a station officer, I don't know how you're doing. So by being proactive. So I think awareness has come a long way, but we still have a long way to get people to convince them that you need to do this. And even if you're not sure, just to reach out and establish that contact with somebody, just to follow you a little bit and check up on you and make sure that you're good. We got to wait.
Chad, I think this story is really, I hope you weren't embarrassed by it, but it's a brilliant story because what it does is it highlights, I think, the first step that we have to, as Chief said, yes, we've got the awareness, but now what? And I think what you demonstrated was just normalize the conversation. Normalize having those conversations afterwards where somebody could say, yeah, that really was bad, instead of everybody trying to tough up and say, oh, I'm fine, I'm good. But to normalize it where it's okay to say, that didn't feel good. That didn't feel right. That wasn't right. Is that kind of the intention of those moments?
Yeah. I mean, just being present and being able, you can't have conversations when you're not there. And so, and, you know, looking at national statistics based on a study that was done just a few years back, 80% of those in the fire service say they would not reach out for help for fear of seeming weak or unfit to do their job. That's an IAFF study that was done, 80%. So if they're not going to reach out, man, look, I've been to a lot of firefighter funerals. I have been to some on the job, from on the job injuries, from bell towers, falling on 3 firefighters in Pittsburgh, to falling through the floor and through a backdraft, all of that, but including even over the last year, too, that from suicide. And so when you're talking about incidents, I'm not okay with any aspect of that, right? And so specifically when it comes down to the mental health aspect, and harboring those thoughts, and 65% of firefighters are haunted by memories from traumatic incidents. 65%, that's a lot. And so when you're talking about that, they don't talk, but they do joke around in the house. They do talk around the table and just want to sit around. I'm not trying to pry anything from anybody, but I do want to let them know, man, we're here to talk, and we're going to normalize this, because I'm going to sit and I'm going to talk about stuff that maybe I had seen or witnessed back when I was in the back in the fire service, or even now. Just the, you know, I always joke, that my wife and I see counseling on a regular basis for everyone else's benefit so that I don't lose my mind, right? But at the end of the day, we have to normalize mental health. We have to normalize the fact that we're not Superman. And when we take off the bunker gear, there is not an S on our chest. And it's okay to not have that. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay for things to bother you. I remember one of my first traumatic incidents, and I remember how my captain handled that situation. And just in case he listens to this, I won't throw that out. But I remember feeling like, okay, so I will never share how I will never share this vulnerability again. And so, but from Chief's point, you know, our new recruits coming into the department, they know from day one, look, talking about this stuff is the only way you get through it.
Excellent. I think, you know, we can create the awareness and stuff. We're fighting a real thing that goes back generations after generations from the beginning of fire service. You know, is that Superman thing, is that we are the heroes and we don't, you know, we have to be stronger than everyone else. Are we talking about trying to redefine how people view strength too? Is that part of what we're trying to do?
You know what? I think that feeling and real emotional feeling is strength. Being able to tap into that. I think it's also a strength to be able to reach out to somebody and go, you know what? I'm not okay and I need help. So I think it's a different definition, but I don't know that it's redefining it. I think what it is it's very important for people to understand is that I'm a strong person, but I'm going to reach out for help. That takes strength as well.
And it's a lot easier, Scott, when you're talking about, say, if you're doing CrossFit and man, you're just throwing up all the thing, and then you tear your rotator cuff. No one has a problem with when a strong person gets injured there. It's physical. It's easy. I can go to the orthopedic doc. The surgeon's going to take care of me. I'm going to be fine. But when it comes down to something you can't see, man, that's a strength that is very unique and very undefined for a very long time within the fire service. And so that element of being strong from an emotional standpoint is critical. You know, you look at most of these firefighters, 90% of firefighters in the service are men. And then you're, man, it's so great to see so many more women coming into the department, backgrounds, everything. You know, I love the cultural diversity inside of departments. Everything that's going on is fantastic. It's moving in the right direction. What once was okay, or the standard of care inside of the departments, is just no longer, it just can't. The incidents are increasing in measures that we couldn't even imagine. In our department, we don't necessarily receive a lot of structure fires and things like that, although recently we've had quite a few things coming in it, and it's interesting. But you're talking about the medical calls. We live in an area where 95, it's a area of road, it's a highway, and that goes through our district. Well, people down here think that 95 is the speed limit. And when you're dealing with incidents and traumatic incidents like that messes with you. And so you can't just be strong on a scene. You have to be strong on a scene. You have to be physically strong for a scene. But if you're lacking the emotional strength of getting the help that you need, eventually 10 years, 15 years, it's going to catch up. So that's what we're talking about.
It's amazing. And, you know, you mentioned things like 95 and, you know, me in the community, just the other day, there was an incident on 95, somebody driving the wrong direction. Unfortunately, there was a fatality. But to me, that's an inconvenience for you guys. That's a whole experience that you have to live through. I'm not sure if that was in your area or not. It might've been south of you, but it was, you're dealing with that all the time. But let's go. Chad, you had mentioned a few minutes ago, you've attended a lot of funerals. Chief, I know you have too. More than anybody would ever. I mean, one is too many. I mean, for anybody, it's the truth. But many of them for situations that could have been avoided if somebody maybe spoken up. We're talking about dealing with individuals who need to ask for help and dealing with that and changing that that comfort level and making things normal. Don't we also have to talk about, if you truly care about this person, you need to say something? There's been a lot of times people have covered for other people and they think they're protecting them, but it's actually the opposite of protecting them. They're not helping them when they see that they're in trouble. Is that an issue that you guys take seriously?
Absolutely. I think that First of all, we've talked about this. That station officer, that station captain, is the most important role anywhere in this fire department. He is the
That's
one
right.
that's going to know his people, and when they come in the morning, how you doing? Are you good? And that has to happen, right? They
Yeah.
have got to be able to know their people. But it's a brotherhood, and for me personally, I don't need them to come to me. They can go to somebody outside of administration through peer support, through the chaplain. We don't discuss anything. I hear things just from the crews, how they'll call up and go, the chaplain was here and helped us out. We don't discuss anything. I'm very well aware of how they feel about administration knowing anything. Even though we would reach out, we would get them the help they need. We're aware that there's they're uncomfortable with us knowing anything about. But when I have a peer support, when I have captains that are trained, when I have people that basically just care about one another, and a chaplain, we don't need to know. All we need to know is that we've done everything we can to make sure that they have the support and the education and training that they need to get that help that they need. So that I think that's where we're at now. It's not a thing where it's going to come to administration and this is going to be a bad, horrible thing. We want to reach out and help out as much as we can, but it doesn't have to be me or any of my staff. It could be another firefighter. It could be peer support. It could be the chaplain. Just get the help.
Yeah, and that's been from day one when we had our meeting at the department when I was getting interviewed. They were like, "Look, we do truly want anonymity. We want confidentiality to be of utmost importance." And so when you have the support of administration in a department like that, and that truly mean what they say, man, that's critically important. And so I get the peer support team, myself. The station captains, lieutenants, we really do get the chance to be the liaison. The EAP programs, the things that are available for the department and for first responders that are available and oftentimes just unknown. But even if internally we have a page dedicated, if anyone is going through anything, they can just go on, they can look, they can read, they can get numbers, they can call, contact without any. No one from administration is looking at any IP addresses or anything like that. I mean, that's it's really important to build trust within that community, within the fire service.
That's excellent. So you also, the message has to be that, listen, asking for help is not like you're sending up red flags that everybody's going to see. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable doing it. You're not losing your seat on a truck because you're asking about how you're feeling about something. We want to make sure people know that, and you guys are setting that up. The peer support's a big part of that. Now, Chad, being a part of peer, I assume you're part of the peer support team.
I am. Yep. Mm-hmm. I help. Very connected directly with the peer support team for our department. Mm-hmm.
So I guess this is for both of you. It's like, what are you really proud of that you've achieved right now, or that you see happening with peer support, and where would you like to see it go next? I guess this is for both of you.
Chief, go. You can start on that one.
So what I really, 2 years ago, we didn't have a peer support team. 2 years ago, we didn't have a chaplain that was able to be as involved as much as Chad is now. So we've made enormous strides. We put a website dedicated to behavioral health. And the reason for that is, like the chaplain mentioned, that is just simply, if I'm struggling and I need help and I need a place to go fast, I can go to there. I can get all the contact information. The peer support team information with their cell phone numbers is on it. The chaplain, his is on there as well. They can get that help. So I'm proud and I'm encouraged of the fact that we've made strides, but I want to temper this with saying we have a long way to go. And there still is. I get this all the time. I'll hear from the peer support team. They go, well, everybody, the membership, wants to make sure they're a little concerned about this, that, or the other. And still, as long as we've come, there's still that thing about, well, I don't want administration to know. Yeah. For me, and we've talked about this, my number one thing is the health, safety, and wellness of my personnel. That is my number one job in this department. And I couldn't go to sleep at night if I, for some reason, wasn't doing everything I can. The job is dangerous enough. I don't want to add other things to that. So for me, making sure they've reached out to me. I've had firefighters that reach out to me on a regular basis sometimes, just checking in, how you doing? But I know that they feel comfortable with that, and then they feel comfortable if I'm calling them. But at the end of the day, we're going to get them the help we need. And whether that's with the chaplain or with ATC or with anybody, we're going to get them the help that they need. You know, this job probably most likely caused that issue, right? Just by the things that we see and everything that we're doing. I'm not saying that nobody comes in with issues and problems, but this will magnify it, right? So we want to make sure that we're taking care of our people. So we've come a long way, but we got a long way to go.
Yeah, and I'll give kudos quick because having been around quite a few departments, large and small departments throughout the country, having the privilege of seeing what is happening in regards to behavioral health, mental stability, emotional health, that the wellness aspect of the holistic aspect of an individual is, man, it's light years ahead of where a lot of places are right now at Gardens. And that is a true testament to the chief. And no, just from the short time I've been on, I feel as if, you got different aspects of chiefs all over the place, and that's okay. But I feel like the genuine care of the staff and the crews of this department is chief's number one priority. And he will be known after he, at some point when he retires, he's going to be known as the chief that made sure that individuals were well within the department. And that's gonna go way beyond. So that's just my short 8 months or so being with the department. It's very evident.
Chief, I think he just one-upped you on the introduction thing.
He did.
Oh, no. Hey, but it's true. That's reality. Because I've been around. Look, I'm right now in communication with a wonderful department in a city that I love dearly, and they are not there. The chiefs are just not in support of some of the stuff, and the union's trying to figure out how to make that happen. Well, it's really good. It's not negative. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and so sometimes in different cities they just don't know. So my question, even to the union president, was just, hey. Do you know any chiefs that are within your structure that you're connected with that could reach out and talk to your chief? There's something there that's maybe doing it well, doing it right, that they're seeing that could move the ball down the field. And in this line of work, moving the ball down the field 5 yards is a massive win.
Absolutely. Chief, you want to add anything to that? I know you how much you care personally, but you also have the rest of the administration, and you've got, there's people that are involved in budgets and this and that. It takes everybody kind of coming together too, doesn't it?
I would venture to say that everybody on my staff understands how I feel, and they feel the same way, right? Yeah. It's not something that is forced. It is not something that they have to buy into. They buy into it because they understand the importance of it. So, again, it's surrounding yourself with the right people, right mindset, given the tools that they need. And they know they don't have to come to me. Somebody could reach out to one of them and they'll handle it just the same way. That is the priority of the department. The priority of this department, outside of emergency service calls, but even more important than that, is the health, safety, and wellness of the personnel who are running those calls. And I know this might sound, people might be a little critical, but that's the most important thing. Running calls and serving the public is second. I can't do that if I don't have physically, mentally, emotionally healthy firefighters.
I think if we put it out to the community, it's an understanding that healthy and well firefighters are going to do a job better for the community. Whereas if you've got people that are struggling and, it not only are they not going to be as effective, they could actually be a detriment. Although your first priority has to be the first priority, and it seems to me like it should be a no-brainer that it is the first priority. And as we're discovering, this is almost new thinking, which is kind of strange. Do you guys kind of look at things and say, how come we didn't do this before? Is it ever like, wow, I can't believe we didn't think of this?
All the time at almost every aspect, right? So it's not just, it's almost every time you do something, you look at it and go, just why haven't we did that before? And it's not like Chad said, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. and that's okay. But as a chief, as a leader of department, it's your job to find out what you don't know and then make
That's
those
right.
steps. And like you said, even a small change in a department can make a big change for your people. So you have to be willing to be able to do that, and you have to be willing to do those steps and put those things in place. You got to work with your union, because at the end of the day, you both want the same thing, right? So you got to be able to reach out. A lot of times, labor and management don't always get along. And I would say to anybody that's not, you got to put that aside for the betterment of your people when it comes to health and wellness, and kind of put that aside, because you got to do what's right at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Listen, I know we can do more on this, and I hope we can revisit this a little bit with Chad, and maybe even get into some more topics. As we've discussed, there's still a long way to go. We know this because we see it every day, and unfortunately, we've seen it in our own backyard in recent months, where we've had tragedy. Where I'd like to think it could have been avoided if we move forward and learn. Maybe that doesn't have to happen again. People like you, Chief, and you, Chad, that are going to make this happen, that are making the changes now. We appreciate it. We all do out in the public, and in other first responders appreciate watching somebody being so forward thinking. Not that there's any awards for being the first department to get it right or to do this or do that, but it's almost like hey, we don't get awards for doing the right thing. It's just the right thing to do, right? So any final thoughts you want to share with us, Chief, Chad, on, where we're going with everything and how you're feeling?
I'll let the chaplain go.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chief. So I want to just encourage anyone that's watching this, listening to it. If you're in the department, you're one of the captains, one of the firefighters, one of the chiefs, administration, whatever, just ask the second, third, and fourth question. When you're sitting down, don't always have an agenda with your guys. Sit down and care about the person, who they are on the other side of the helmet, and care what's underneath. For years, it used to be a badge of honor to have a burnt through 1010 on your head, that was all sooted up and melted down and gear was black. But the reality is now that's no longer socially acceptable, because we understand what that soot means and the effect that it has on the health of a person. The reality is that soot and every bit of burn mark comes at a cost of an individual from an emotional standpoint. So it is a direct representation of what is happening to a person's soul when based on the gear. And so just have a heart for your team, have a heart for your people. If you're in the department, I don't care if it's your first week, ask some second and third questions, put your arm around someone young, raise them up the right way within the department. And we'll see a different change long term. When there's always celebrations at the end of when they come in and they get their badge and they're so excited, and they have no idea what's to come yet, right? Because a controlled burn is so much different than anything else they'll see out in the field. But on the other side of that, on their last day when they receive their axe upon retirement, man, wouldn't it be great for a family to still be intact, to have no substance abuse issues, to be emotionally well and looking forward to the rest of your retirement for the service that you had. And so that's the goal from a chaplain standpoint, being with the department. That's my goal, and that's my encouragement to any department out there. Just reach out.
Well said. Well said, Chief.
I think we both know I can't top that.
I was hoping you would try. It would be interesting.
Very well said.
No.
But again, this comes down to finding the right people. So
That's true.
When I can find people like Chad to come in and do the job, and literally the conversations that we had is what we were looking for. He knew, but we talked about we don't need to get involved. We trust you, and we know that you're going to handle it, and we don't need to get involved. So again, it goes back to getting the right people for the right job. In this case, not job, volunteer. But you have to get somebody that, listen, he obviously loves what he does to do this for a volunteer basis and the amount of time that he does into it. So that's the kind of people I want to be associated with. That's the kind of people that we want to attract here. And those are the kind of people that I know are going to make sure that things are going to be done right. And we're going to make sure that our firefighters are healthy.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, both. If I could say it any better, I would. I don't think I can, other than thank you for your service. Thank you for everything that you do for the community, and thank you for what you do for the first responders that are serving our community, for caring as much as you do, for putting your time in, and certainly for going above and beyond in the real role that you have to play, which is your human role, and caring about people. Thank you very much for everything you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
And
Thanks,
Scott.
Thanks,
Thanks
Chief.
to you, Karen, ATC. You know, the education that you do for firefighters on addiction training, your nonprofit for first responders is much appreciated as well. So you're as big a part of this as anybody.
Well,
Yeah.
we do appreciate that, and it's an honor to do it. And as Chad said, it's a calling. It's not just something I can turn on and turn off. And I know you guys can't either. It's who you are. And thank God there's plenty of you guys out there. Let's support each other, and let's make sure that we help as many people as we can help. But for now, I'm going to ask you guys to sit tight in the waiting room while I close things out, and then I'll be right back with you. All right?
Great.
All right. So Chief Brier and Chaplain Chad Lang, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Scott Jones. I want to thank you for joining us at Firehouse Table Talk. Remember, you can see this on the ATC network. It's also going to be shown on One Brother, One Sister website and other places. Make sure you like the show, share it with your friends. And if there's something that you want to know, you can get a hold of us at ATC, which is atceducation.com. If there's anything you want to know about our podcast, and more importantly, about the fine work that is being done by our first responders right here in South Florida. Most importantly, our friends over there at Palm Beach Gardens Fire and Rescue. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll catch you next time right here on the ATC Network.